Welcome everybody to the council meeting on Tuesday, the 10th of September. My name's Matthew Driscoll and I'm the Mayor. To start the official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jarrah country, of which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Welcome everybody. Thank you for attending. We have an apology of Councillor McClure, who's currently overseas, who can't attend. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest in the papers? No, great, thank you. Obviously, if they appear or come up, please put your hand up. Could I have someone move the confirmation of minutes of the 20th of August, please? Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I move that the minutes of the meeting of Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 20th of August, 2024 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Neer. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Acknowledgements, nothing. Public question time. Could I have someone to suspend the standing orders, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Cordy. All those in favour of that? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we have public question time. So is there any questions from the floor? Okay, thank you. Thanks to Lucas. Come up, step up at the podium. Please state your name clearly. State if you're representing the group or organisation, and then say what you would like to say.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for having me, especially with such a full agenda tonight. My name's Lucas Maddock. I'm representing the Mount Alexander Greens. Through the Housing Access and Equity Policy, Council expresses its commitment to ensuring there is housing that meets the needs of all residents of Mount Alexander Shire. Council is well aware that there's a lack of affordable housing here. The affordability of rentals in the Shire has dropped from 96% in 2000 to 13% in this year. The result is dire for our community. I've knocked on over 600 doors in the Moonlight Creek ward in the last few months, and I'm hearing all sorts of stories about how this is affecting the community. Housing affordability is one of the most raised concerns. I hear of a pattern of young adult children of long-term residents being forced to leave the Shire. They want to live here, but they can't afford to. And there are those who wish to move here, but are priced out. These are people, young, middle to low income earners, who are the most likely to work in our essential service industries. And this comes at a point when the largest demographic in town is either retired or retiring. Unlike in the city, when we displace our essential workers, we often can't replace them and we lose the services that they offer. We've recently lost 2 after-school care programs, and at least one of our aged care facilities is running at 30% below capacity. Council reports that 80% of surveyed businesses are affected by a lack of affordable housing. A decrease in community services is a direct downstream result of our lack of affordable housing in our Shire. We are going to need more services and more essential workers in the coming years, at the same time as we are losing the community members most willing to deliver them. I applaud many of the initiatives that the council has undertaken in this area. Is the council aware of the extent that our housing crisis is negatively affecting our local essential services? Has council modelled the likely impacts on services if these trends continue? Are the current measures in place adequate to address these impacts?
Thank you for your question, Lucas. I might get the CEO and then, Director Knight to answer that. So, CEO.
Thanks very much, Mayor. And thanks very much for your questions and comments there, Lucas. And I know that you well understand some of the initiatives that council is already undertaking, but I did think I would just go back over a few before handing over to Director Knight, who will respond to those specific questions that you got. Council is very aware of the impacts of the restricted housing affordability and availability in our community. To that end, on the 18th of June this year, Council adopted the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust deed, which was the first step in establishing a local autonomous charitable housing trust. The trust will, once it becomes enacted, will focus solely on responding to the housing affordability and availability needs of residents in the Shire, and it provides an opportunity to deliver affordable rental homes as well that is independent of the necessity of government funding and policy, but can apply for and benefit from them when it's available. It really has a broad eligibility criterion and so will be capable of housing the demographics that you are talking about. Despite having very limited land holdings as well, Council's already allocated 4 sites, 2 in Castlemaine and 1 each in Maldon and Newstead, for delivery of affordable rental housing with community housing partners. We continue to advocate to the state government for release of local state-owned land for delivery of affordable housing also. Addressing the national housing crisis in availability of secure, affordable rental housing is a task that requires all levels of government and the business community and our general community as a whole to contribute to making a difference. In developing the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust, though, Council has already committed $500,000 towards the establishment of that trust. We really are leading the way as well as a council in the world of local government, we think, which we are very proud of as well. The trust was developed in response actually to community concern and desire to be able to contribute to making a difference in a real way, notwithstanding that for all time, and even now still, it is not a council responsibility to deliver housing for communities. We're doing it anyway. It is a local and a perpetual and trust is the intent, and focused entirely on addressing affordable housing needs in our Shire, as I mentioned earlier. I might just hand over to Director Knight now to pick up on those questions that you asked as well.
Hi, Lucas. Thank you again for your questions and really important questions. So thank you for raising them. With regards to out-of-hours school care, Council partnered and supported local primary schools to seek grant funding from state government, and that was to enable the facilitation of these programs. And that's been a real challenge over a number of years. And back in 2022, Council worked with the Department of Education, the Victorian School Building Authority and community to establish these programs at a number of schools within our Shire that hadn't been available up until 2022. These discussions continue as to out-of-hours school care, along with kindergartens and along with childcare. And that is led and in partnership with our early years, middle years and Baluch steering committees. And that includes all the agencies and carers and families that are involved in all of those committees. Council continues actively with the provision of community services across the Shire and advocates to state and federal government for improved place-based services. So we're certainly talking a lot about outreach programs so that community don't need to travel, whether it be to Bendigo or whether it be to Melbourne or other areas across the Loddon Mallee. In October 2023, Council unanimously resolved to continue and expand aged care services, and with thanks to state government, particularly to our Member of Parliament, Marie Edwards, Council have also partnered with the Department of Education again, VSBA, and the Victorian School Building Authority, Wide Ballarat and Castlemaine South Kindergarten to expand and improve facilities for 3 and 4-year-old children and their families at the South Castlemaine site. There are more announcements that are on the way for kindergartens across the Shire, and that is in response to the state reform for 3 and 4-year-old kinder rollout. Council are also in the process of undertaking deliberative engagement and community consultation and seeking feedback for the 20 to 25 council plan, the 20 to 25 and 2029 municipal public health and wellbeing plan, and a midterm review of the 10-year community vision. So there continues to be ongoing opportunity for anyone within the community to provide feedback around community services and other council priorities through the council plan and the health and wellbeing plan development.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you, Director Knight. And Lucas, thank you for your question. Judith Laycock, are you here? No, okay, thank you. We've got a question from Judith, which Councillor Neer is going to read out. Councillor Henderson is going to
I'm
read out.
taking it
Sorry.
over. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Judy's question is, with climate change now upon us, all the advice for health and survival is to prioritise nature. To me, this means protecting and increasing nature. Our council had embarked upon a hugely expensive, never been seen before reduction of nature. Tree enforcers are out there removing what we call yes and they call risk. Because their metric is money, and in that equation, trees are worth less than nothing. Life is cheap. I say we live in a time when, yes, we have never been worth more. I'm not quite sure what yes is meant to be. I think it's a typo. Never mind. I think it's trees. I think Judy's writing is probably a bit hard to write. Trees have never been worth more. They are Castlemaine's true gold. Surely the creative people of this town can help our council to change the equation so that the cheapest option is not to destroy nature, but to protect and increase and care for nature. If a myopic van driver hits a bridge, do we destroy the bridge and pay for his damaged van? That would be ludicrous. To destroy the tree he hits is just as ludicrous. There are enough bad things happening out in the world. To have this destruction occur in my place of refuge has shaken me in my core. Can this radical, short-sighted destruction be paused before it is too late, until a full evaluation of all the costs and all the risks and benefits be undertaken? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I'm going to direct the answer to Director Knight. Director Anir. Sorry, Director.
That's fine. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Judith, for the question. I understand, Judith, you've also had a chance to talk with our coordinator of Parks and Gardens to share your a little bit more deeper the concerns that you've raised, which has been very helpful to understand your position. In regard to the points that you've raised in your question today, Council does acknowledge that trees in the urban areas are very highly valued. And this is due to the positive contribution they provide towards maintaining sustainability, amenity, and community health and wellbeing. Council's urban tree policy, which was adopted in 2023, which can also be seen on our website, reinforces this perspective and sets out Council's position in relation to the management of trees within the urban area across our shire. Just to point out a few things from the policy that is highlighted here in relation to the question. It directs the management of our programs related to trees to promote and protect the existing trees that are in the shire, to promote public safety and tree health, to maintain the existing canopy cover, to implement the cost-effective enhancement and maintenance of public trees in line with best practice, arboriculture and current legislative requirements, to increase the public awareness of the value of our trees, and to maximise the social, community health and wellbeing, economic and environmental benefits of public trees for current residents and future generations. The recent works which have been undertaken within the Shire are to proactively mitigate the risk to the public and, with regard to Council's obligations under the Road Management Act and the electrical safety or electrical line clearance regulations. This is also to help support the longevity of our trees within our Shire and the overall population, and the benefits that those trees provide to our urban environment and our community health and wellbeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And thank you, Judith, for your question. Is there any more questions from the floor? No, thank you. Could I have Councillor resume standing orders, please? Councillor Cordy, is there a seconder? Councillor Maltby, all those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 8.1, which is the Integrated Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee. This is minutes for the meetings held on the 15th of Feb, the 16th of May, confidential, and they're in attachment 8.11. Could I have a motion to that, please? Councillor Cordy.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'd move that Council notes the Integrated Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee minutes for the meetings held on 15th February and 16th of May 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. All those in favour of that? That motion is carried. Thank you. Brings us to item 8.2, which is the Mount Alexander Shire Council Clinical Governance Committee. Meeting minutes for the meetings held on the 29th of January, 25th of March, 20th of May, 22nd of July, and are also confidential under attachment 8.2.1. Could I have a councillor move that motion, please? Councillor Maltby.
I'll move the council notes the Mount Alexander Shire Council Clinical Governance Committee minutes for the meetings held on 29th of January, 25th of March, 20th of May and 22nd of July 2024.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Councillors, all those in favour of that motion? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Which brings us to the next item, which officers report, item 9.1.1, which is the annual report for 2023 to 2024. Could I have someone introduce that, please? Councillor Henderson, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm moving that we adopt the annual report for the year just finished, 2023-2024, in all its wonderful glory. And I would like to move that we adopt the annual report 2023-2024 and note that the final financial and performance statements, together with associated requirements under Section 98 of the Local Government Act 2020 for inclusion in the annual report 23-24, will be presented at a future meeting of Council once sign-off from Victorian Auditor General's Office has been received.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second to that? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Councillor, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Certainly. I will certainly let my fellow councillor speak too, because this is a document that summarises all the work that council officers and with councillors involved too, making decisions and key points, have carried out in the previous financial year. It's all the financial statements, and I believe we do have sign-off, but we don't have the official bit of paper that goes with it. So we're not really allowed to say it's done until we've got the document in our hands, but we know that everything's fine. The Auditor General is happy with all our financial statements, as so he should be. And otherwise, apart from this, it has some great, it's a document that has been simplified in recent years, thanks local government to Victoria. They allow us to, the Act, we don't have to submit it to the Minister anymore. We can streamline it a bit. And our communications team do a wonderful job of telling great story of what highlights of council operations in the previous year and what's been going on in the community with some great case studies, which I'm now browsing. Oh, goodness me, I'm even in one of them, which shows a photograph of the play space in Taradale. And it was a wet morning, but we had a great time gathering for that. And an interview of our housing solutions officer, Claire Richard, on the local radio, talking about issues there. And look, someone planting beautiful vegetables in a garden. Some great photographs in this. It really does make a beautiful document as well that's full of good information about how council operates. I can commend the public for reading it on a quiet afternoon. It's a good read. It might be a bit heavy going through the financial statements, but the first part's really good. And you can find out everything that council does, service by service, in here, how much it costs, how many people do it. It's got a lot of information in. If you're thinking of standing for council, it's very worthwhile reading it. That's me, Matt.
Sorry. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, we'd like to speak to the motion or reserve your right.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak now. Look, it's a great report. Serves as a permanent record of council's achievements for the year. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the comms team, the directors, and all concerned with preparation of the report. The last one in a similar style won an award, which when you're talking to people that work in the local government field, it's really nice to be able to say, oh, you should read our annual report because it's an award-winning standard, and it's a tremendous result, and I'm sure this report will be highly regarded by those that read it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Neer.
Thank you, Mayor. I always like to talk about the annual report because I think it's really great. I I like how much more accessible it's become over the last few years. I remember 4 years ago reading the council report when I was considering running for council and learning such a lot, but also being so overwhelmed by the scope, I guess, of what council of the services council provides and what council gives back to its community. And I still really get that sense when I read it now that not only is it that though, but it's just such a nice little reminder of what we have all achieved together in the last year as a council and as a community. I really love, particularly right near the front, it goes through month by month, basically. So since July 2023 to June 2024 this year, of things, you know, big things, little things, things that we want to remember, things that we want to remind people about that happened in those months. And it's just lovely to look back over it because of the pace at which council moves. We almost have to purge things the moment that we're done with them and move on to the next topic. But it's such a great reminder of all the wonderful things that we have achieved over the last couple of years, over the last year. And I think my favourite bit though, on this page, starting here, are the case studies. So little kind of vignettes that go a bit deeper into depth about some of the things I guess that we're most proud of, like continuing our commitment to care for older residents, which is such a big deal. And I don't think we talk about enough what a massive decision that was for our community and for us as a council. I think it's such a big one, and I'm so glad it's got its own case study. I love to talk about this one too, where we partnered with our community to create spaces for young people. So this is the Taradale Youth Space that Councillor Henderson mentioned, where it came to us as a budget bid a while ago, a couple of years ago, and it's happened and it's been launched. And we were out there on the weekend, and there were young people everywhere having a good time, and that really means a lot, I think, to our younger community, especially, you know, older young kids, I guess, who might just need a little bit more fun than some of their little siblings. We've got a case study about making more long-term affordable rental housing available. So this is about the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust, which we'll talk about later in the meeting too, which we're very excited about. And obviously, we're proud to be powered by 100% renewable energy. Another thing that we really need to remember and be very proud of. The other bit that's in this one that I don't remember from last time, maybe because we didn't clean up in awards season like we did this year, but it does list a number of awards that council has run for initiatives and documents over the year. And the one that I would like to highlight, because I was there and because it's been something that's been really, it's been something that I've watched change over my life here in Castlemaine, and it's a really beautiful day, and that's the Australia Day Survival Day event, for which we won a Magali Award from Reconciliation Victoria this year. It's very special to have that acknowledged, because it can be a really tricky day to have an event for, because it means such different things to so many people. So to get the recognition that we're doing something special by trying to bring everyone together in one place and not make it uncomfortable for anyone as much as possible is really special. I could keep going and just go through page by page, but we've already got a big meeting, so I'm going to leave it there and just again echo my fellow councillors and say you should have a read of this, because it's really positive, which is something council needs sometimes, and it would be great if people would read this and acknowledge some of the great things that council is able to do. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillors? Okay, councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion? Oh, sorry. Thank you, CEO. Christine, you have a right to reply, sorry.
I think Rosie's done us proud. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cordy too.
Thank you. We have a motion in front of us, councillors. All those in favour of that motion? Motion carried. So that's carried. So I just want to say, all those people who do bag council, sometimes, if you have a read of this document, we do over 110 services, actually tells us what we do. So if you had a read of that first before you bag us, it's probably a good idea, in my opinion. Thank you. Next item is 9.1.2, which is the closed circuit television in public places, CCTV. Councillor Maltby, would you like to introduce that, please?
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to present the closed circuit television in public places policy for adoption. Closed circuit television is a surveillance system that can be used in public places to assist in reducing instances of antisocial, unlawful behaviour or damage to council and private owned assets. The use of closed circuit television is one tool available to council and is recommended to be considered alongside and in conjunction with other approaches to strengthen community harmony, prevent crime, and improve community safety. Community feedback has shown support for the targeted use of closed circuit television systems in public places to reduce antisocial behaviour and improve community safety. And I'll move, Mr Mayor, that council adopts the closed circuit television in public places policy.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second of that? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Is there any opposition? Okay, thank you, councillor Gardner. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
As the introduction said, the use of closed circuit television in public places assists in reducing instances of antisocial or unlawful behaviour, including graffiti or damage to council and privately owned properties, assets. Can also assist in improving the safety and confidence in public areas. The closed circuit televisions systems, the reactive CCTV systems where data is stored on securely located recording devices for up to 30 days. It's not intended to install active CCTV systems which allow footage to be viewed in real time. This will limit access to data in real time and potential security breaches. So in fact, the policy is very strict and fulfills privacy arrangements, but goes to the next step of trying to solve one of the major issues the community has at the moment.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, sorry. Would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner. I think you do need a microphone.
Sorry. I suppose I start from a position where I'm not really a fan of CCTV. Now, if this was in response to large crime waves, then maybe I'd probably be in favour of it. It's not. This is looking at targeting graffiti. The problem is once, and we've seen it everywhere in the world, once the CCTV goes up, it might be currently protected, it might be not live, that can change. I'm not really a fan of surveillance of our citizens, and really for graffiti, there's better ways to manage it. I noticed there was talk about evidence that it reduces or prevents crime. There is no evidence that CCTV reduces crime. In fact, if you look at the countries where they use it a lot, in places in Europe, and talk about China and places like that, it hasn't got rid of crime. At best, what it might do is catch someone. Now, obviously, with these CCTVs, it's going to be on public record where they are, so it's unlikely that that it will continue and they'll just move around a corner. So generally, I'm against, personally, CCTV systems and the monitoring of our citizens, regardless if it's live or not. And once they're up, they evolve in technology.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? To say anything? Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you, Mayor. I've been really conflicted over this one, especially since reading, I guess, the feedback that was received by council when this policy was out for community consultation. I personally don't have a problem with CCTV, but from reading the feedback that we received from people, I'm really understanding that a lot of people do have big concerns about it, particularly in terms of, I guess, as Councillor Gardner is saying, maybe not what's happening now, what council may be planning to do right now, but what it could lead to. And I guess, you know, that's something that I really took into consideration because of the very strong way that people have spoken out against CCTV and how it would make them feel. I think how it would make them feel like they're being watched, and how it makes them feel as though council, and I guess an extension to then all government, does not trust its community and does not trust them to do things unsupervised. So I've been wrestling with this one a little bit because the other part of me really, really, really is very tired of certain pockets of graffiti. And it is very weird for me to be saying this as someone who never thought they'd be that bothered by graffiti either way, honestly, because it's, you know, I used to think it was pretty harmless, but it does really, really, really bother a lot of people. And I think especially in those very visible places, such as our bridges around in central Castlemaine, the kind of persistent tagging graffiti stuff on those bridges is, you know, it's really bothering a lot of people, and it can be really unpleasant stuff to read. I know I talk about this and people are like, who cares? But it's just the kind of thing where, you know, I live up one of those ways, and every time I drive by it, I just feel a little bit bad about everything. If I got my kids in the car and there's a big thing on the bridge that says the C word, I'm not feeling too good about going that way ever, and I have to go that way to get home, and so do a lot of other people. I don't know if CCTV will be the answer. This policy is giving us what I consider to be a relatively safe way to roll out CCTV for very key sites where other things have not worked. We know that anything else that we've tried for those bridges in terms of rapid removal, in terms of other things, hasn't worked. So in my mind, they might be a good candidate for something like CCTV, and this policy will give us a way to responsibly manage that data, making sure that it's not accessible to anyone else. I'm not 100% comfortable with this, but I think as one of the comments I read mentioned, it's kind of like I'm reluctantly supportive of this. It's not ever where I would go first, but given the amount of pressure that the graffiti problem has put on me as a councillor and just as a person over the last few years, I'm really willing to try anything at this point to try and curb it a bit, because not only is it a bit awful for a lot of people, it's really costing us and other agencies an awful, awful, awful lot of money, which could be better spent elsewhere to remove the damages. So that's a very long-winded way of me saying, I guess, that I'm reluctantly supportive of this, even though I really hope that we are very careful in the way we roll out CCTV. And the policy, I think, goes a long way to making sure it's done responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Councillor Anir. I needed that because, like you, I am very uncertain about this. I don't like CCTV on principle. I know, you know, when I visit my home country of England, I'm aware that just about 100% of the time in public, I'm being filmed by at least 2 cameras. And as an old lady, with white hair walking around the city, I'm not that worried about it. But I'm just aware that everyone is being scrutinized. And in this age of AI, there's no limit to who can be spotted where and when. It's absolutely limitless. You can be identified traveling even from country to country almost instantaneously as you've done the journey. So it's part of that connecting, you know, CCTV and artificial general intelligence, which is the age that we're moving into, is quite a profound thought. But anyway, we won't go there in Castlemaine right yet. My understanding, this is generalising like policy permission, if you like, for council to install systems. That we already have 3 CCTV systems installed, but each time we've done it, there has to have been a particular case put forward, or we have not quite formalized the guidelines for it. So no, this is actually formalizing the management of CCTV. I might just confirm that with our Director of Infrastructure and Development, if I may, because I missed the break.
Question for clarity, Director Anir?
Thank you, Mayor. So that's correct, Councillor Henderson. So at the moment, there is the policy presented today on the table, which fills a gap of a policy level, and supporting that there's a procedure which has been endorsed by the executive, which underpins the policy if the policy was to be adopted today.
Thank
So
you,
this
Director.
won't be this not opening the door to the possibility of CCTV. It's just making it easier. It is worrying, is it the thin end of the wedge? Of course it is. In 10 years' time, what are we going to have? For, say, the big step forward to live streaming of CCTV, that would require a significant change to the policy. Am I correct? Or would that just flow on?
Another clarity question, please,
Is that a
Director.
question of
Anir?
clarification? Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct, Councillor Henderson. So the policy currently does not allow for the live
No.
use of CCTV policy. And maybe to foreshadow a future question, it does not allow the use of biometric data for recognising.
So what kind of,
individuals.
would that mean actually adopting a completely new policy or just an amendment to the existing one?
It would have to come back. Any amendment to the policy for consideration of those issues would need to come back to the council table for consideration.
And would it be out for public consultation as well?
It would most likely be, yes, in line with the way that this policy has been put out, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess thank you for that. I did miss the briefing where councillors are given an initial understanding of these. I was sick at the time, so yeah, as I say, I'm not comfortable with it, but I can appreciate, given the impact that particular kinds of graffiti have had in Castlemaine. There's fairly mindless graffitiing going on almost all over the place, including trees in the forest, for heaven's sake. But the particularly offensive stuff that's happening in Castlemaine, I think calls for some response beyond just cleaning it up once again. So I'm reluctantly supporting this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to clarify, this is about the policy of how CCTV cameras would work and how they would be controlled by council officers. And we've had a lot of community concern about graffiti in problem areas of infrastructure around the town, and this policy sets out the way that that would be properly managed. So I'm happy to support this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. Look, the policy is good because it is restrictive, that it can't be live and in real, which people can access without approval, etc. We already have 3 systems going in the Shire at the moment, one at the Camp Reserve, one at the Bradfield Rooms in Victory Park, and one at the Woodfull Pavilion in Malden. And not in my knowledge have we ever had a complaint about them being there, and they most possibly, and more than most possibly, they have assisted in reducing. Yeah, graffiti's one issue, but there's other issues that the policy's there for. It's good. It's bad. It's stopping bad behaviour, hopefully, because you can get caught. But again, the policy is very strict, and as the director said, if there was to be any wanting to change the policy, it would have to come back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us that council adopts the closed circuit television in public places policy. All those in favour of that policy, please raise your hand. All those against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Sure. Okay. Councillors, all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That's Councillor Cordy, Councillor Maltby, Councillor Neer, Councillor Henderson, and Councillor Driscoll. Sorry, not Councillor Henderson. Start again. All those in favour of that motion, Councillor Cordy, Driscoll, Maltby, and Anir. All those against the motion is Councillor Gardner and Councillor Henderson. Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, councillors, next item on the agenda is item 9.1.3, which is a request for installation of closed circuit television, CCTV cameras at Forest Street Bridge and Johnson Street Bridge. Councillor Moult, would you like to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the installation of closed circuit television systems at the Forest Street and Johnson Street railway bridges in Castlemaine. These bridges are repeatedly targeted by graffiti offenders, and other methods of deterrent undertaken to date have not reduced the frequency of vandalism. Two bridges are in high-use areas, and due to the graffiti messaging on these sites often being offensive in nature, the recommended course of action is to install a closed-circuit television system at each site. As evidenced by the successful reduction of graffiti following the installation of cameras at the nearby table tennis pavilion at Camp Reserve, it is likely that CCTV at these sites will significantly reduce the number of incidents of graffiti and provide evidence to support the apprehending of offenders. And I would move the council approves the installation of a closed circuit television system at the Forest Street Bridge and the Johnson Street Bridge. Notes that the installation of cameras will be funded by a local road and community infrastructure grant to the value of $48,000. Notes the privacy impact assessment and closed circuit television system need assessment for each site.
Thank you, Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Cordy. Is there anyone opposed to this? Councillor Gardner. Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
As I said in the introduction, these two sites are one of the two abused sites in town, and they're very significant, as in public access, etc. It has been proven that at the Camp Reserve near the table tennis pavilion that it has helped having CCTV there. So that is the next step, and there is an infrastructure grant to fund it.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right?
Reserve the right. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thanks, Matt. Obviously, I've just spoken against CCTV. Now, the reason I'm actually against this one, yes, CCTV, but actually that council's paying for it. So basically, these cameras are being erected on a bridge, which is not our asset, and the owner of that asset hasn't really probably been that working with us to reduce the graffiti, and it's been quite difficult. So how's it being paid for? It's essentially been paid for through a grant, which is for local roads and community infrastructure grants. So instead of a road or a footpath getting fixed up locally, we're going to be using on on cameras to protect someone else's asset. Apart from that, there's an ongoing maintenance with it that comes with it. So to me, if the owners of those assets are that concerned about their assets, they should be paying for it, and that's why I vote against it.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Neer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, these are the two bridges I was talking about just before, the Forest Street Bridge and the Johnson Street Bridge. The graffiti and general tagging on them has been getting progressively worse over the last few years. And, you know, again, I'm not totally against graffiti. I enjoyed some of the, I would say, earlier incarnations of the graffiti, and then it just got a bit too much. And I think as much as a lot of people, think it's very funny and think it's an expression of art, which, in some ways it is, I just think the cost to the community, all the people who, are really upset by it, the cost of us cleaning it every year, because as Stephen says, the asset managers don't respond as well as we would like them to. They're not able to, is what they tell us. So, so council gets permission to clean certain bits and pieces, and that takes more time and resources. Both the bridges are heritage listed, which obviously adds another layer of complexity to it because you can't just go and power wash them. the managers of the bridges have looked at installing barriers to make it a bit harder for people to get up there. Again, can't do it because of the heritage. Rapid cleaning is not an option. The areas are already well lit, and the police do regularly patrol, as they tell us. So we've kind of gone through all these other deterrent methods, which we would try and use beforehand, and it's really not getting better. Although I will say the bridge got cleaned, 2 weeks ago, Forest Street. I haven't been over to the other one for a little bit, and it still hasn't been tagged. But seriously, every day I drive into town, I'm holding my breath going, I wonder what it's going to say this time. How horrible is it going to be? Am I going to have to drive a different way to get home every single day for months and months and months and months? Because nobody can clean it in the rail line except for the manager of that asset, who does not have the resources to. I'm just a bit fed up. And look, I know there's this, and again, we received a lot of this in the feedback on the policy around, don't assume it's always young people. A lot of antisocial crime is also perpetrated by older people. I get that. I really do. I don't think we should be chucking young people under the bus for this at all. I think there are a lot of suggestions in that feedback that we received on the policy saying, how about you make a graffiti wall for people to express themselves on safely and contribute to the community that way? I think that's a great idea. We've obviously talked about it before. I would really like council to pursue that in the future, because we know that there obviously is an interest in graffitiing and tagging in our shire. Wouldn't it be amazing to channel that into some more creative pursuits? Back to the CCTV cameras on these bridges. Again, they're reactive cameras. They're not we're not able to watch the footage in real time. It's stored for 30 days. They're highly locked down with a secure lockbox. They're 3 meters up a pole. There's a special key that only delegated officers have. There's also an 8-digit passcode that only delegated officers will have. I feel like the way that we're trying to manage these cameras, we're trying to do the best we can with something that probably we don't really want to be doing very much either. Let's be honest. It's not like we're rushing to chuck CCTV up everywhere, but I'm pretty frustrated at the amount of times we're having to clean these bridges and other things. And again, I was a really naughty teenager. Not that it's always teenagers. I was a naughty teenager, and I did my fair share of antisocial behaviour, including on council assets, which, I don't feel great about now sitting around this table. But I also was caught for my petty crimes, and I, paid fines, and I did community service, and it taught me a really healthy regard for, if I break someone else's thing, I'm not necessarily going to have to pay for it, but somebody is. And I just think that the more that this type of, and it really is just really petty crime. I don't really consider it crime in the way that I consider other crimes, because I think often it's not hurting anyone, but there is an impact. And I often think people don't think about where that impact is going to land. And the impact can be a financial one. The impact can be on people's well-being. It can make people not want to come here because we don't clean up our town. And, we're meant to be this beautiful heritage town, and there's graffiti everywhere on all of our bridges. I'm obviously pretty cranky about all this. And again, it's a real 180 for me, because I never thought I would be. But this, I hope, is going to help a bit and just bring a little bit of relief to the kind of onslaught of graffiti on these bridges that we've had for the last 4 years. It's endless. It can be really awful to different groups of people, especially women. And I'm sick of it. I really hope this does work. But honestly, I would just like it if people didn't do it on the bridges in the first place. And I'm hoping that down the track, council can maybe put up a nice wall or find a nice wall and try and direct people to do it there. So again, I don't feel 100% great about this, but I'm a bit at my wit's end. So I'm supportive of the cameras going up in these 2 locations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Henderson?
It's all coming out now, Councillor O'Neill. Right, thank you. Look, I like you. I really, can enjoy some graffiti, and I don't think that it's 100% bad. I lived in Sydney in the late 70s for a while, and there was a magnificent group called Bugger Up, which were targeting cigarette advertisements on billboards and doing magnificent work and graffitiing each one as soon as it went up. And I think they really were instrumental in that campaign to stop billboards advertising of cigarettes. In fact, advertising of cigarettes full stop. They led a very successful campaign and it was very high visibility. And I do note that the billboard that was very contentious, it went up on Johnston Street a number of years ago in against council's decision, refusal, VCAT to run. And I'm rather pleased to see that each advertisement that goes up there actually gains a rather insightful political bit of graffiti. The current one for the Commonwealth Bank is very nicely stamped with climate criminals, which is, political graffiti. So graffiti and graffiti, but I haven't seen any great stuff on the bridges, and I think it will be great if we can stop the rather pathetic efforts of someone trying to aggrandize themselves with perfect statements about other people, which are really offensive. I was worried about the notion of the council officer shimmying up this power pole to get the data from the CCTV camera until I read that, in fact, there will be a SIM card in the hard drive in the camera, which will allow them to transmit the information to the officer on the ground. So health and safety is preserved there. So I support the recommendation. Thank you. Or the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, the graffiti problem's been getting worse for the last few years. It's the main thoroughfares in Castlemaine we're talking about in this instance. They're dangerous situations for would-be graffiti vandals. Somebody, if it keeps going, somebody will get hurt or worse. We need to try this to bring the issue under control. Tagged means vandalised. Don't make no mistake, it's criminal activity. It's not our asset, but it reflects and impacts on our community. And let's face it, we're not talking about art here. It's just offensive, rude, disgusting behaviour. And these cameras, if they put a stop to it, well, it'll be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Motley, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. It is going to cost $48,000, but currently council spends approximately $70,000 each year removing graffiti and addressing vandalism across the Shire. So if it helps assist the reduction of that cost, is a very good start in life. But I also note that the police, local police, have informed council officers that the most successful approach to apprehending offenders and preventing further graffiti is to install CCTV systems, and all recent arrests have been due to identifying offenders from that footage. And as I mentioned before, the table tennis pavilion used to be regularly done. Now it's probably twice a year that it's been attacked. So putting some cameras in very prominent locations is a good start to reducing the major problem of graffiti.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. All those against? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item on the agenda is item 9.1.4, which is a response to the petition requesting the reconstruction and sealing of Merrifield Street, Castlemaine. Councillor Maltby, please introduce this.
Thank you. Council has received a petition from members of Merrifield Street and the surrounding community requesting the upgrade of Merrifield Street to a sealed road from the Midland Highway through to the Panther Street intersection. Residents believe that gravel road is infrequently maintained, in poor condition and badly corrugated, and it provides direct access to 17 residential properties as well as other users who access McMeekin Street, Burnett Road and Mary Street. Recently, maintenance on the Froomes Road Bridge over Barkers Creek has required Froomes Road to be closed for several weeks. This raised concerns from local residents about the use of Merrifield Street as a detour route along with increased traffic volumes. The outcome of the initial investigation does not support the upgrading of Merrifield Street to a sealed road. It is recommended to include Merrifield Street for upgrade on the future capital works program. And I'll move that council notes the council officers will increase the frequency of grading along Merrifield Street to 4 times per year. And notes that sealing Merrifield Street will be added to the proposed future capital works list to be considered along with other roads as part of the long-term capital works program and annual budget processes. And 3, notes the council officers will advise the lead petitioner of the outcome of the investigation and council's consideration of the officer report following the meeting of council today, the 10th of September 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor Neer, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, Merrifield Street is used frequently by more and more people. But as the motion says, it's one of probably 50 roads that need sealing at least. And as time goes by, we as a council or the next council will continue the process of sealing roads and streets. I might make a comment that whilst it is a major thoroughfare, had the Froomes Road Bridge been shut properly, this street might have got sealed quicker.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak to your motion and reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So obviously we've got a recommendation here that to put Merrifield Street on our list of proposed future capital works to be considered along with other roads, and to grade it 4 times a year instead of 3 times a year. And knowing this street pretty well, it is well used, but I think that at this point is an acceptable outcome for this road. So I think that the trigger for sealing a road can be based on a number of different things, one of which is average daily traffic volumes. And while the road does, it does see some traffic, it's not quite hitting those it's not quite hitting the targets across the board, and neither is the speed of the traffic on the roads hitting the 100 km/h speed limit. I think it's also worth mentioning that this road is already being graded once more than a lot of the other roads in the Shire, so it's already being graded 3 times a year instead of 2. So offering another grading per year is essentially double what a lot of the other roads are getting. So that's a pretty good outcome for now. Also, to put this on our list of long-term projects to seal roads, there's currently 46 sites on the list for request upgrading to a sealed road. 17 of these have been designed and are awaiting grant funding, and a significant number of these sites have traffic volumes greater than 150 average daily traffic movements, which this road does not. So while, yes, I think putting it on the future list is a great idea, it is not going to end up at the top of the list. It's just not, because there are higher priority roads right now. It will get done at some point. And for now, it's going to be graded twice as much as any other, well, I don't know if it's any other, but other dirt roads in the Shire. I'm really hoping that is a good enough outcome for now, but I don't know. I'm sure we will hear from affected people if it's not. But I think this is an acceptable outcome, and yeah, that's all I can say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, what concerns me about this, it's all very well to say you're going to grade that road more, but surely that means there's going to be a grader taken away from a rural road where people are conducting their business, and just going to result in less grader availability for rural roads. So I'd rather see it sealed and done with. So I couldn't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Okay, Councillor Maltby, you have a right of reply.
Look, the extra grading may alter the grading roster, but it's not on the highest list of the agenda. to fix the other roads in the Shire, but council is addressing the issue that the residents have raised. And as I said earlier, if they'd agreed to shut Froomes Road Bridge, well, something else might have happened.
Okay, thank you, councillor. So, councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. 2, 3, 4. Thank you. All those against? That motion's carried. Thank you. Shenanigans going on here. Councillors, thank you. We have item 9.2.1 next, which is the Harcourt Flood Study Amendment. Councillor Cordy, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable council to consider adoption of the Harcourt Flood Study and to consider the submissions received on the draft planning controls relating to Amendment C100 MELCS, which seeks to implement the recommendations of the Harcourt Flood Study. Council recently engaged the community on the draft flood planning controls with support from North Central Catchment Management Authority. 7 submissions were received, of which 3 remain unresolved. The amendment seeks to apply the flood-related overlays described in draft C100 MELCS or MALX to land identified as subject to flooding in a 1% annual exceedance probability and a representative concentration pathway of 8.5 flood event along the Barkers Creek between Barkers Creek and Harcourt. These overlays aim to raise awareness about flooding, allow for broader consideration of land use and access, and offer developers clearer guidelines regarding development possibilities. Council officers recommend that Council adopts the Harcourt Flood Study and the Planning Scheme Amendment documentation and resolves to request the Minister for Transport and Planning to use their powers of intervention to prepare, adopt and approve Amendment C100 MALX to the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme without notice. The Minister may refer the amendment to the Flood-Related Amendments Standing Advisory Committee to consider the unresolved submissions, and I'll move the recommendation as printed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Do I have a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Is there anyone opposed? No, okay, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Look, this has been a long time coming. That we've needed this flood study. We've seen dwellings constructed in recent years that are in flood-prone areas. The study's been done in conjunction by professional consultants, but in conjunction with the North Central Catchment Management Authority, and it is appropriate for this flood study amendment to be put through to the Minister for adoption. Just because if you don't have the study, doesn't mean you're not going to get flooded out. The bottom line is this should have been addressed years ago, and there's a handful of properties that are still affected. There's been some changes made, but I'd support this for clarity going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right to speak?
I'd just make the comment that, as we all know, Harcourt is one of the developing areas of the Shire, and the next 2 motions also address some works that have been done out there or planning being done, and this is one of the good first steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? No? Okay. Councillor O'Neill?
Just, I guess, on the back of what other councillors have said, I think this is really important as, you know, we will be trying to direct growth to Harcourt as a growth area, and we can't keep, well, you know, people can't keep building houses in floodways because it's not great. So I think, I mean, I've been really interested in all this because I think flood modelling is really fascinating. And, you know, council has worked with consultants and North Central Catchment Management Authority to do this. And there's been, I think what I've been really impressed at the most is how, you know, how much genuine community consultation there's been to inform this amendment, because, you know, it can be a big, it's a big change for a number of property owners. And the big things that it's introducing, the flood overlay, and the land subject to inundation overlay, both of which are a little bit different. But because there are none of these overlays at the moment all along Barkers Creek between kind of Castlemaine and Harcourt, there are a number of properties that have been built in places that are subject to inundation or in a flood zone. So 157 properties are proposed to have both the flooding overlay and the land subject to inundation applied for the first time. And that's pretty big. And, you know, a lot of those landowners and households could be pretty, you know, it could be a big change for them. And I think that's why I appreciate so much the approach that's been taken to consulting with those households and residents and trying to work through their concerns, to the point where we only have a couple, maybe I think 3 outstanding objections, and all the rest have kind of managed to be kind of gotten to a bit of a middle ground, I guess, where the owners understand why it's important that these overlays are applied to their houses. I think the bit in here that really lets me know that we need to get going on this, and it has to happen now, and it's coming so close on the back of the planning scheme amendment from Harcourt, which will be, you know, directing the growth in a responsible way. But this needs to happen alongside that, because it can take a really long time for this kind of planning scheme amendment to be gazetted. I think there's a local example in here of the Castlemaine, Shooton and Campbell's Creek flood study, which was adopted by council in 2015, but not gazetted into Amendment C82 until 2019. So that's 4 years. Because we know that we're directing growth that way, it is really important that this gets done, you know, relatively quickly, so that the growth that does occur will be happening in a way that people's houses won't be flooded and inundated with water, you know, as we are having more and more extreme rain events. So, yeah, I think this has been a really fascinating process, and I really applaud the way it's been approached, particularly with individual households and community members who have, you know, real concerns about what these new overlays will mean for their properties. I think the amount and types of consultation and communication have just been really great, and I hope that it doesn't take 4 years for this amendment to be real and happening and applied. But I do support it very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Neer. Other councillors? Councillor Cordy, you have a right to reply.
I think we've covered it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, councillor. We have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That motion's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 9.2.2, which is the Harcourt Town Centre Action Plan. Councillor Maltby, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the Harcourt Town Centre Action Plan for adoption. Recent strategic planning and economic development work in Harcourt, namely Plan Harcourt and Shine Harcourt Lenganuk, emphasised the need for urban design and place activation initiatives in Harcourt's town centre to promote a defined town centre. Subsequently, the Harcourt Town Centre Action Plan has been prepared to support this. The purpose of the Harcourt Town Centre Action Plan is to build on the Place Activation Plan in Appendix 1 of Plan Harcourt 2024 and Ambition 5, growth of Shine Harcourt Lenganuk, to establish an overarching vision and urban design plan for the town centre. Prepare a list of 10 priority actions for council to help deliver on the vision established through the vision plan. And I would move the council adopts the Harcourt Town Centre Action Plan.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second to that motion? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Is anyone opposed to this motion? No, thank you. Okay. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
As I alerted to before, this is the second of 3 items tonight that talks about Harcourt's future. It's designing the town centre properly and through consultation with the community and getting it ready for the growth that we're all envisaging.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion? Or reserve your right?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll speak. Look, Harcourt's a go-ahead place. We know that. If you look at that map in figure 1, well, I grew up in on the corner of Buckley Street and Bagshaw Street. So that area I operated in until my teenage years, and it's a fabulous place. With regards to the town centre action plan, I think Harcourt is poorly served in terms of available commercial space. So would have liked to have seen it expanded a little, the commercial area. But look, it's a fantastic place, and it's really going to go ahead. So well done to all concerned. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Neer?
Harcourt is a lovely place, Tony. You're absolutely right. And I think as it gets bigger, I don't know, a lot of what we've been doing in terms of the stuff we've been bringing through council for Harcourt lately is in terms of really setting up Harcourt's development future, I guess, for success, but also in a way that means it's, you know, it's community friendly, and that the people who live there and work there and, you know, go there for recreation and for play can get around, feel good being there, can find places, you know, that it happens in a way that makes sense for a community, instead of, I guess, doing all the building and infrastructure stuff and then people trying to have to fit themselves in around it. I think trying to plan it this way is it's a really wonderful way to approach things. I think the action plan is great. There's 10 actions in the action plan, about a whole bunch of stuff. In like some of them, things like number 2, make James Parks Harcourt's civic heart. Like that's just a really nice action, and I can really, I guess, envision what that would look like if it was, you know, if it was undertaken. How, you know, people could feel about that space and how people would gather there and use it. I think there's actions in here around promoting and supporting active transport. There's not a heap of active transport linkages in Harcourt at the moment, and the plans here show just such wonderful walking, cycling spaces that will make it easier for people to get around. Make High Street a high street. This is such an important one because Harcourt is going to need that commercial centre. It's going to need its own high street, and there's been a bit of residential encroachment on that. So it's really important that as Harcourt does develop, it has what it needs there, as well as, you know, people will be able to go to other places within the Shire and other places. It's great to have a high street in your own town. All of these actions are great. I think this is really exciting. I'm really hopeful that the way that we're setting up Harcourt for development is going to lead to a really great outcome for the community that's already there, and also, of course, new people coming in and joining the Harcourt and the Mount Alexander Shire community. So, yeah, another really great one for Harcourt tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Moppy, you have a right to reply.
The action plan, as I said, starts further developing Harcourt to be that beautiful little country village that Councillor Neer just spoke about.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Laws, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion is carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9.2.3, which is the Harcourt Infrastructure Plan. Councillor Cordy, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. It's all Harcourt tonight. It's really happening, isn't it? The purpose of this report is to present the Harcourt Infrastructure Plan for adoption. The Infrastructure Plan establishes the strategic basis for the negotiation and collection of contributions from developers to fund essential high-order infrastructure in the future as the town grows. The Harcourt Infrastructure Plan was originally prepared in 2021 while work on Plan Harcourt, Amendment C94 MALX, was being undertaken. Council was briefed on the draft plan in late 2021 and late 2022 during a series of briefings probing and testing the rigour behind the mechanism to collect development contributions, as well as the proposed per lot rate of contribution. The draft Harcourt Infrastructure Plan was placed on public exhibition in 2022 and feedback has informed the final plan. Between 2023 and 2024, further work was needed to complete Plan Harcourt, and the Harcourt Infrastructure Plan was placed on hold while Plan Harcourt was completed. With Plan Harcourt now completed, the Harcourt Infrastructure Plan has been finalised and is recommended for adoption, and I'd move that Council adopts the Harcourt Infrastructure Plan. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Maltby, thank you. Is anyone opposed to this motion? No, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, look, just briefly, with the expansion in the number of dwellings in Harcourt, there's demands on infrastructure and development contributions as land gets developed is a way of going part way towards funding that necessary infrastructure. And we have had several discussions at council about this and what the rate should be. And I guess like all these projects and all the works that we need to make Harcourt function correctly, it all costs money. I note that the figures haven't changed a lot since they were first put to us a couple of years ago, but you know, we're looking a bit over 10 grand per lot as a developer contribution. But it's important that we have this in place because there's a lot of infrastructure that needs upgrading. So yeah, I'm happy to support the adoption of the Harcourt Infrastructure Plan. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion and reserve your right?
No, I'll reserve my right.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillors?
Well,
Councillor Henderson?
yes, I mean, I can say that it is quite a lot of money, but then Harcourt needs a lot of work, doesn't it? That's the thing. And when it's not Castlemaine, it's not Malden, it's not Newstead in many ways. It's an ex-highway town that needs turning into a town without a highway and with more of a town centre and some good connections to the new developments to bring them into being part of the town. So we've adopted the town centre plan, and we've got to pay for it, as well as the Plan Harcourt that's already been adopted. So I note that development contributions plan is the way that we're imposing these is through a Section 173 agreement, rather than a formal developer contributions plan, which turned out to be a bit tricky for us to do. So it is a voluntary arrangement, though I think there are ways for persuading developers that they should be paying. So I support it, yes, because Harcourt needs to fund itself, its own growth, rather than relying totally on the rest of the Shire. Right. So may it turn into a great, expanding, growing, vibrant urban centre.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Maltby, you have a right to speak.
Oh, look, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Cordy are correct. It's the next step to making Harcourt the second biggest village in the Shire.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Just for info of my fellow councillors, High Street in Harcourt was the Calder Highway when I was growing up there. Our main source of entertainment was watching the traffic go past, so it was pretty exciting times when I was growing up there. But picking up on what Councillor Maltby said and Councillor Henderson, it is a great community already, but it's going to be even better going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, we have a motion. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. So off on Harcourt. So now we've got item 9.2.4, which is the Campbell's Creek Off-Road Trail. Councillor Anir, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the Campbell's Creek Off-Road Trail. This report seeks approval to proceed with the contract award for the Campbell's Creek Off-Road Trail works, consisting of the construction of pedestrian bridges, concrete path and boardwalks. The report further seeks approval to allocate additional grant funding and funds from the 2025-2026 financial year capital works budget to enable the completion of the Campbell's Creek Off-Road Trail. The project involves the development of approximately 600 metres of off-road walking and cycling trail along Campbell's Creek. The new trail will extend an existing trail just south of Princess Street in Campbell's Creek, northwards, connecting with another existing trail along the creek to Castlemaine. Once completed, the trail will link Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve with Camp Reserve in Castlemaine. The project has received a $1.19 million grant under the Community Sports Infrastructure Stimulus Program being managed by Sport and Rec Victoria. Council has completed Stage 1 works. The detailed design and approval process for Stage 2 works have been completed and released for public tender works on 14 June 24. The tender period closed on 26th of July 2024 with 2 conforming bids received. Both tenders were significantly higher than the available budget. The recommended tender offer is from AMH Civil Propriety Limited at a value of $1,483,787.30, GST exclusive. At this price, there is a budget shortfall of $850,203.81, excluding GST. While the recommended tender pricing does not represent value for money, if Council was to fund the project from Council funds alone, the report recommends Council consider allocating additional grant monies and future capital works budget, which would bring Council's contribution to 35% of the total project cost. It is considered a 35% contribution towards a highly complex project, which will result in high community benefit, is value for money for Council. It is recommended that Council approve the allocation of additional grant and capital works funding to the project, which represents a long-term investment in our community and the completion of a community asset that has high community interest and has been advocated for many years. And I will also move the recommended motion as printed.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Councillor Maltby, thank you. Is there any opposition to this motion? Okay, thank you. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, this is pretty exciting because I remember going to the original meeting about the missing link in this trail between the trail that goes through Campbell's Creek Moor and the trail that comes back into town. And I would have been 10-ish, I think, at that original meeting. So it is, you know, it's one that's been hanging around for a lot of my life and something that I just, you know, quietly thought might never happen because of the complexities with the project. And there's been different complexities, like the complexities at the time are different from the complexities now. So it's, you know, the complexities themselves have shifted to some degree, I think. This is one that, you know, we've been, as council, we've been advocating for. We, you know, we really want to see this project finalised. And then, you know, receiving tender quotes that are significantly more than the budget we have, you know, that's a little bit of a spanner in the works. And also, you know, the first time we went out to tender for this project, we didn't receive any responses. Nobody wanted to do this project because it is very complex. And because even the way that you have to build the thing is complex. You have to kind of build the path and then carry the bridges along the path to build the bridges and then keep going that way. It is a complex build. There are environmental impacts, there are cultural heritage impacts, and you know, it's something that I think a lot of people, long-term or short-term residents, especially of Campbell's Creek, have a lot of, you know, they feel like they want it done in in a certain way. And it's really important to them that, one, it gets done, but two, that there aren't negative impacts on the environment and cultural heritage. So the fact that that we have received these tender quotes that are, quite a lot more than we had budgeted for, that might be enough to kill a project sometimes, honestly, because we just go, we can't afford to spend that much money on this thing. It is not value for money. It is not a good use of ratepayer money. We cannot justify this to our community. I'm really happy that is not the recommendation that we have, that as much as it is more expensive than we had initially budgeted for, it is still seen as enough. There is still seen enough community benefit here to, I guess, find a little bit of a creative solution to get the rest of that money to ensure that the project still does happen. And I think the suggested way that we're going to do that, in terms of using some money from the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Fund, in terms of approving an allocation from our 25-26 financial year capital works budget, which to be expended, I guess, this financial year instead. It's still a lot of money, but it's going to solve a problem that has been hanging around for a really long time. And I think there is huge benefit here. In fact, just the fact that you will be able to walk or ride safely, not on the road, safely on an off-road path from Castlemaine all the way out to the Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve. That's huge. That's a really big connection. And I think a lot of people will use this and benefit from it and be really happy. So I'm really excited about this. When this project comes to fruition, that will be a really even a more exciting day, I think. But at the moment, I'm excited to progress this project with the recommended suggestions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Neer. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right to speak?
Councillor Neer is correct. It's a project that has been sitting there for a long time and does need finishing. And it is a community asset that the people of Campbell's Creek especially want, and they want it finished. It will create that path from Campbell's Creek to Castlemaine. This year we started some work on the Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve, and that over the next few years will be finished as well, I hope, because it is an important part of Campbell's Creek, and as this trail is as well. We just spoke about Harcourt developing. Campbell's Creek has developed over the last few years residentially. It probably needs a bit more commercial activity, but that's another story later on. But this is finishing a project, and then, as I said, the Recreation Reserve will be the next on the list. Well, it's already on the list, but it'll need finishing.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Henderson?
Councillor O'Neill's making me feel very old. 10, really, when it started? Oh, come on. Anyway, it is a long time. Yes, it's called The Missing Link, and it's just been on the list of too hard things to do. Yeah, how can we get anyone to do this? And yet, so I really have to commend Director Anir and his team for actually getting this, getting a successful tenderer. I don't know quite how you did it, quite how much talking to them you had to do to actually come in at a price, even though it's well over budget, at least something that we can contemplate and say, yes, we can go with this. And we'll go with it because it is such a long-held desire of a large group of people. I think when I mentioned it, once the papers have been published for this meeting, that this was on the agenda, there was a general elation expressed by the people I was talking to. Could not believe it was actually going to happen at last. It'd be a great asset, not just for Campbell's Creek, but for Castlemaine, being able to go down that beautiful environment that has been restored by Friends of Campbell's Creek and council officers to a certain extent as well, to over the years to make it from a rubbish dump to a beautiful environment, which the creek running all year thanks to the outflow from Collarbone water. clean water outlet. Yeah, so it'll be really good. And I'll even think of getting on a bike again just so I can ride down once it's finished. I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy.
Yes, Mayor. It's an important project. We've got to get on and do it. I'm a little bit worried about point one because by the time we find out about the 200,000, the cost will blow out by another 200,000. So you sort of never get there. If we'd done it 5 years ago, it would have cost half. So it's time to get moving with this one and get it finished. But it'll be a fantastic project when it's done and something that'll be cherished for generations ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillors? Councillor Anir, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. And I might just query something with Director Anir around relating to the LRCI 3 funding. Is that the shortfall from the Vaughan to Realtor project? Is that money left over from that?
Yes, Director.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So, Councillor, yes, we have been successful in negotiating a lower than expected cost for the Vaughan to Realtor low-level crossing, which has allowed some space for us to then nominate this project to the LRCI fund, which is, as per the recommendation, to nominate it for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, I'm really hopeful that we can, just get going with this and get the missing link will be missing no more, and people will have, smooth transport, active transport between Castlemaine and Campbell's Creek. And I think that's a really good start. And, as per our active transport strategy, that is a really nice way to start and expand out from there. So I'm really excited. I can't wait until it happens. I will be down there watching somebody cut a ribbon and being very excited. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Thank you, councillors. Okay, councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That motion is carried. Thank you. It brings us to the next item, which is item 9.3.1, which is a planning application PAO 10/2024, 19 McAfee Road, Castlemaine. Councillor Henderson, could you introduce this one, please?
With pleasure. Yeah. So the purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination on an application for the use and development of the land for 31 dwellings and communal buildings, not community, subdivision and removal of native vegetation at 19 McAfee Road, Castlemaine. The application has been referred to council for a decision because more than 5 objections have been received. The council officer recommendation is to approve the application. Subject site is within a general residential zone, Schedule 1, and affected by a floodway overlay and a land subject to inundation overlay. Thank you. The application was assessed against the planning policy framework and determined that the proposal is consistent with the relevant provisions of the framework. It also meets the provision of the general residential zone and the floodway and land subject to inundation overlays. In forming this position, consideration was given to the grounds of objection and views of the relevant referral authorities. It's recommended that the application is supported and a notion of decision to grant a planning permit is issued in accordance with a large number of recommendations.
Do we have a motion?
I haven't got a seconder yet, mate. Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought we needed a seconder for it. Yeah, well, I'll certainly move the recommendation as printed on many, many pages.
Thank
About 20.
you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Neer, thank you. Is there any opposition to this? Okay, thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Oh, with pleasure, Mayor. What can we say? Well, the subject site is a 2-hectare shaped block comprising 4 parcels located at the western end of McAfee Road. I hope all my fellow councillors have had a look at it. Beautiful bit of land. What a treasure. What a nice little gem of bit of land tucked on the outside of the general area of Castlemaine. See, the site contains a dwelling in the northwest corner, 2 sheds and a canopy near the dwelling. Dilapidated dwelling in the southwest corner, which does not have an impact on the proposed development. Land is undulating, with a fall from McAfee Road to the south. Vegetation is scattered throughout the site and a waterway is located in the southern portion of the site. Access is from McAfee Road. And there's an informal double crossover and loop driveway in front of the existing dwelling. So that's the context. The dwellings, it's proposed to develop the land for 31 dwellings with the concept of developing a small co-housing residential village. This is for WINC, Older Women in Co-Housing group, are proposing this. 4 different home types proposed, each unit being self-contained and including kitchen, accessible bathroom, sleeping and living areas. Outdoor spaces provided for each unit will be fenced for those residents requiring fencing. Except for Unit 4, which is standalone, all the units are clustered in groups of 2 and 4 units. Due to the site topography, some of the units will be constructed on stumps, and floor levels will differ from building to building depending on the proximity of the building to the waterway. 4 of the proposed dwellings are proposed to be offered as social or affordable housing. And what can I say? This is a monumental project. It's been, I think, just 2 years. The land was purchased in Castlemaine for the proposed development. So WINC co-housing members are committed to a thermally efficient, accessible, mixed tenure, supportive community where women with varying assets and backgrounds can live together and create a positive, healthy environment that fosters aging well. Living independently in small, self-contained dwellings, residents will also share community spaces centered around a common house. We have a large amount of information. It is a subdivision where every participant, every person, every woman who buys into this will actually own their own piece of land, as well as share in the common property. The idea is to provide accessible and affordable housing on a pretty big scale for our community. I think it's a fantastic development. I'm not going to go through the details. I'm sure my fellow councillors have been looking at the reports with interest, and I know we were thoroughly well briefed on it in a briefing and planning meeting. So I just want to excitedly recommend that this motion be passed and the women be able to get on with their development as soon as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
So the motion is as printed. Yep.
I said when I moved it, yes. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Rosie, yep, done that.
confused.
Rosie, you have the right to speak, or do you want to?
I'll go now.
Yep, thanks.
Mayor. Thank you. As Councillor Henderson said, it is a really special planning permit we've got in front of us tonight. I haven't seen anything like it since I've been on council. Yeah, it's co-housing for older women and living in a beautiful, beautiful spot up that end of town in their own houses, but with lots of communal spaces and lots of places to share, share food, cook together, work in the garden, beautiful things like that. I think, it's really reflective of the fact that, older women are one of the fastest growing cohorts who are experiencing homelessness. And we know that locally that holds very true, that there are a lot of older women and single parents, that kind of stuff, who haven't experienced homelessness before, who have. I think it's wonderful that there's provision in here for some for affordable and social housing for people who, might need a little bit more help to get settled into and to have the opportunity to live in this type of community. I think when we were talking about, who wants to move this one, Councillor Henderson said, well, I'm the one who's going to need it, and then I said, I will also need something like this eventually, because I can't think of anything that I would love more in my older age than co-living with a bunch of other women, and having those collaborative shared spaces where I can cook and garden and be around other people, but also then be able to go and hide in my own house when I don't feel like talking to anyone. I think there's been an incredible amount of work put into this application, and I particularly think, there's been a lot of I guess negotiation around some things and really demonstrated from the applicant about why, you know, this certain thing may not quite meet this certain clause in the planning scheme, but this is why. And often, and so much of the reason why is because, you know, we collectively as the Wink community have decided, you know, lots of people don't want big fences because they want to be able to interact with their neighbours during the day. People, while obviously some people will want more their own private space, a lot of people who live in co-housing type things are there because they want to be around others, because maybe they have lived alone and haven't enjoyed it. Maybe, you know, maybe they just need that kind of support that you can get from living with a bunch of other people. I think I'm really, really excited for this project, and I think it could be something really special that's happening here, and that perhaps other people will, will see happening and go, I'd like to do something like that. Obviously, there have been some objections, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the applicant objector meeting, but I have read all of the both objectors' submissions and those in support. I do think that a number of the objections have been met through conditions, of which there is a lot. Like, of course, for a development of this size and complexity in some ways, there are going to be a lot of conditions, and reading through the conditions, there is a lot, but they are, I think, for me, they are addressing a lot of the concerns in terms of, of traffic impact, of overdevelopment, of stormwater, of removal of native vegetation, of amenity impacts, these kind of things. And there's something about, looking at the plan of what this proposed co-living place could be like, that it does feel very exciting, because we don't have anything like this really that's quite the same. And I think there are so many people in our community who would benefit and, and choose this kind of living if it was an option. So I'm hopeful that, that this application is approved, and the Wink group, goes ahead and is able to achieve this very, very special thing that they're trying to do. I think it's great, and I'm really excited to see it come to fruition. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Cordy?
Thanks, Mayor. Just quickly, I'd like to commend the applicants on their vision and plans for the site, their high quality presentation to council, what is clearly a very needed project, 31 dwellings, absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Maltby?
It is a good project, and it follows our path of trying to help the housing situation that we've been addressing over the last 2 or 3 years. Hopefully, it encourages other people to perhaps look at building similar developments, as in a retirement village or something, but and there is plenty of space around Castlemaine and out towards Muckleford, etc., where that could happen. But certainly the location there and the whole 31 dwellings is amazing.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Henderson, you have a right to reply.
Oh, just a quick to say this is really special, what we're deciding tonight, and obviously we're all very excited about it. I hope we are, Councillor Gardner. It's not going to be graffitied at all, and it's this is a landmark development for co-housing. In this case, it's older women getting together and saying this is what we need. It's going to be low cost. It's going to be built accessibly, so aging in place is all thought about. I think once it gets built, or while it's being built, I think we're going to have people coming from all over the state, all of Australia, to have a look at this. This is just fantastic. All power to you. Well done, getting this together, and may your strength, of cohesion, stay with you and drive you forward. Oh yes, I hope it's a fantastically successful development into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Congratulations.
Just because I'm quiet doesn't mean I'm not excited, Chris.
Okay, next item is 9.3.2 planning application PA 288/2022 1 Lowther Street, Malden. Councillor Gardner, could I get you to introduce this, please?
Certainly. The purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination on an application for development of a 16 lot stage subdivision, vegetation removal and creation of access to a principal road network at 1 Lowther Street, Malden. The application has been referred to council for a decision because 19 objections have been raised. The subject site is located within the General Residential Zone 1 and is affected by the significant Landscape Overlay Schedule 1 pursuant to the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme. The application was advertised and received 19 objections, with a ground of objections relating to the neighbourhood character, traffic, concerns regarding future development, loss of amenity, loss of vegetation, overdevelopment of the site, need for infrastructure upgrades, loss of views, flooding and stormwater, compatibility of the proposed subdivision with the adjoining mine, bushfire risk. The application was assessed against and determined to be consistent with the relevant sections of the planning policy framework. The development provides additional housing supply and diversity within an existing township, consisting with the purpose of the zoning of the land. The subdivision design is considered to be complementary with the existing adjoining neighbourhood character. The subdivision is also consistent with the provisions of Clause 56 Res Code, the SLO and the objectives and guidelines obtained in the Malden Design Guidelines. In forming this position, consideration was given to the grounds of objection and views of the relevant referral authorities. And I'd like to move the motion as printed.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any opposition to this? Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to this motion, please?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, this is sort of a staged, two-stage development of 16 lots in Malden. And there are a number of issues, obviously. Some of the major issues raised, I think, by some of the objectors. One is obviously heritage. It's always raised. The subdivision meets the guidelines of the Malden Design Guidelines, and I know that there was amendments made by the applicant to change setbacks, and most of the design guidelines don't come into play until actual building is is to be built, and so obviously a separate planning application will need to occur for every building that needs to be built. This area is outside the heritage precinct. What was I getting? One of the comments that really stuck out to me when the objections was that made about the heritage needs to be protected, and Malden's a tourist town. Well, I think Malden's more than a tourist town. People actually live there and work there. It can't be a bunch of old buildings. Malden cannot survive on tourism alone. And I know this because my wife has a shop in town, and if it wasn't for locals who shop there, she wouldn't be open. Most days, if you look up Main Street, on the days that tourists aren't in town, a lot of the other shops are closed. We need a domestic market. It's important to have housing in Malden, and I think it was mentioned earlier by a candidate, I'm not going to mention, Capital Party. And Malden also has that problem where there's not enough houses for kids who want to live in town. They have to move. Quite often they're moving to Kangaroo Flat, so we need more houses. ironically, a lot of the people who are objecting against this subdivision are probably in an area that was subdivided themselves, basically right next door. So in those sorts of areas, I'm not in favour of those. The biggest issue, I think, really comes down to the water and drainage, and I have seen it flood, and that is a concern. However, I'm not an engineer. I've seen the plans. I can't make a professional judgment on it. The water authorities have accepted the proposal, and obviously there's a lot of conditions that go with it. In addition to that, a full sewerage water plan will need to be submitted to both council and the authorities' satisfaction. So overall, I feel that the proposal, whilst 16 lots seems a lot, it is done in 2 stages. It meets all the Mount Alexander Shire frameworks, plus all the referral agencies have agreed to it. So there's no reason why I can't seem to support it. And I would hope that my fellow councillors would. And we obviously have had lots of discussions about the needs for more housing, and I know for my community there is a need for more, and the preferred method under the design guidelines for building houses is infill or subdivision, and there isn't a lot of land left around in Maldon that can have more houses. So I would hope you would support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I can speak now.
Thank you.
As Councillor Gardner says, it's in the general residential zone. 16 more houses in Maldon and will help Maldon continue to grow. It's not in the historical zone. It's not right next to the main street shopping area. And the smallest block of the 16 is 551 square metres, which is 1/8 of an acre. So they're not 300 square metre allotments of a major conglomeration of housing. The other concern councillors seem to have, well, some of them, is the water problem. Coliban Water and North Central Catchment Management Authority wouldn't have approved the recommendations if they were concerned, and they are the experts, not us.
Thank you, councillors. Other councillors?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with what's before us here. 19 objections is pretty substantial. The big concern is about the drainage, but also there's potential for impact on the adjacent mine. Okay, it may only be in caretaker mode at the moment, but gold prices are at record high, so there's potential for further activity on that site. And certainly we heard from the mining company about their concerns if this development goes ahead. So yeah, I have those concerns, and yeah, I think the drainage is a big one for me, and I know the referral authorities think it's okay, but when it gets wet, it mightn't be so okay. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think for me, I feel really bad. I only just got to see this today. I was scheduled to go and have a look at this site a while ago. Unfortunately, I was sick. I had to cancel, and I just couldn't get back until today, where I had a look around the site. And I was quite taken aback at the topography at the site. It's far more of a drainage basin than appears, obviously, on a 2D plan that you can see. It's fairly obvious that it's the last shallow area, as in shallow gradient, before a substantial gradient increase in the drainage line in what's called, I think, the Eagle Hawk Gully. That certainly triggered alarm bells for me. I'm not an expert, but I am a reader of landscapes. I do have a geomorphology part to my geological training. And just an experience of, knowing that when water wants to run, it'll go where it wants to go. And it might get stopped for a while by human means, maybe get stopped for 10 years, 20 years, but eventually water will go where it wants to go. And when there's a lot of it, it's an amazingly powerful force. I don't see anything in Colaburn Water's conditions to do with stormwater. It's just all about it's a water supply issue coming from their water mains and, of course, their sewage. Our engineering team are the ones which are talking about site stormwater discharge. And it has been drawn to my attention that there would be needed to produce satisfactory plans, but I just see alarm bells. I see the design for the cut and fill on this site, and it's directly opposing, if you like. It's putting a convex curve on what's a concave drainage line. I say, dig it out here, tell the water to go up north and then back down south, whereas at the moment the water steadily heads towards south before going a little bit north. It's not a good plan. It's by the time you do that, you provide enough fill and enough flat land to put in all the southern 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 lots, and by the time the developer shows that there would only be 350 square meters and some of the lots for actual building envelopes. But even then, and then you want to put fences. The proposal is to actually fence across these drainage lines. So that you would be, at least in the developer's own proposal, you'd be putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fences across the main drainage. Now, it heads into a culvert through what's called Reef Street, and then almost immediately it has to, I'm talking about water here, has to turn through 45 degrees and head through another culvert through underneath Lowther Street. Now, that to me says bottleneck majorly. I can imagine water covering this whole area in a storm. I can imagine it would flood. And we know that climate change is driving more extreme events. So what we call as a 1% flood or 1 in a 100-year flood, that's the norm now. We can't say, oh, well, we had one of those, last year, so it's not going to happen again for a long, long time. It can happen anytime. I note that in some earlier iterations of the developer's own plans, there was meant to be common property, open land where the water runs, but that's been scrapped, presumably due to various other considerations. So I can't support this. I really see setting up problems for anyone who buys into this in the future. I think it's just not a good development as it stands. I think there should be development on that land, obviously, but I don't think this is the right one. And I wish I'd gone to see it earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anir?
Yep. I have concerns too, I'll say. I went out on the weekend to see the property and it's quite different than it looked. It's hard to tell what things are like when they're on a flat bit of paper, and it is, the topography is it could get wet very easily, I guess, is the way I looked at it. I just thought this could all be underwater pretty easily. I think my main concern, though, actually comes down to proximity to the mine, which, I don't know. I think, I've been talking to some of the objectors, and this is a real sticking point for a lot of them, that the mine is, it's not fully operating at the moment, but it will. Again, they've expressed that they're going to kind of ramp up operations again, and the kind of mitigation measures that I see in our report and in our conditions are around nuisance in terms of mainly traffic noise. So that here at condition 11, there's a condition to get an acoustic report, and then this will inform design of dwellings to meet that acoustic report. And I think what's been mentioned to me a lot is more in terms of like dust and the real spread of dust. And there's just nothing in here about anything like that. And I understand that, you know, where the conditions propose putting Section 173 agreement on it that basically says this goes on the title and it says the owner acknowledges and accepts the possibility of nuisance from adjoining mining operations, including traffic noise, underground activities, machinery use, and associated hours of operation necessary for the mining activity. And I get that. So basically that's, you know, you tell people up front that this is a possibility and they purchase that land with full knowledge of that and basically waive their right to complain about it later. Or if they do complain about it later, it's kind of like, well, you knew about that this was a possibility. And I don't know, as much as I'm absolutely hearing you, Councillor Gardner, about the need for more housing, and I think absolutely we just need to do that. But I think I'm a bit cautious about setting people up for having really unpleasant living situations, because I think potentially now the mine is not such a nuisance, but if mining operations do ramp up again, and I think they might, given the, you know, what gold is going for, I just think it is very different to sign an agreement, not having lived at a site and just knowing about the possibility of nuisance and then having to live next to it every single day, especially, you know, if we're talking about families, that, you know, all of the access is going out onto Lowther Street. Yes. And, you know, it's been on a bit of a corner and there's trucks. Like even when I was out there were just trucks roaring past and, you know, the access way is out on this bend. And I'm just not, again, I get so conflicted because I'm like, we just need more housing. That's just it. We need, you know, diverse housing stock. We need it to be everywhere. We just need more. But I am not sure if this is the right housing for that or the right design for that site. And that's where I'm at. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, that means do you have the right of reply?
Yep, all valid points. The mine, obviously, particularly, I mean, obviously they've sought legal advice and there's a bit of issues going on with that. And ultimately the mine operator will take this to VCAT anyway, to seek a determination. Now, obviously officers have, seen that advice and believe that, the application has been looked at, and takes into consideration. Obviously, the mine will have a different view and they'll take it to VCAT. The mine itself, I mean, it's always been, from my memory, for the last 20-something odd years, at best a crushing plant where they bring stuff in. Now, I must admit I was a bit more concerned to learn that, not just in that area, that they could actually go anywhere under Maldon, up to 100 metres under houses taking gold. Now that was a bit of a concern. I was like, really? I didn't know that. But, you know, Maldon is an old gold town. So it is what it is. That's what it is and that's where it is. Christine, that plan you were showing was actually an alternative proposal put forward, so not the objectors at all. Look, I do share the water issue. I have seen it flooded, I think probably twice in the last 10 years that I can think of. It might have been more, but I recall seeing it flooding twice. The whole Allens Road has been a bit of a drainage nightmare, with development across it. I believe it's actually improved probably in the last few years with some of the developments come on. And I know council has enforced and made some significant changes to the drainage system, and it has improved. Upstream, yeah, but it all goes in, I agree. And then there's a 900-metre pipe for it to go through. As I said, water will flow. And I suppose all I can say in that regard is to have some sort of confidence in our staff and the water authorities that they'll try and get it right, and I sort of do. Yeah, it is somewhat, there are some concerns, but there always is for these sorts of things. So my position stays the same, and I hope those doubting will think about supporting it.
Okay, thank you, councillor. So, councillor Laws, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. All those against? Looks like I have a casting vote, and I'm against it. So that motion is not carried. So I'm well aware of the crisis situation in the now that it's done, I can say something. I'm well aware that the crisis situation in housing, and I'm also a developer myself, but I don't believe this is a good planning outcome. In particular, Section 45 of the Mineral Resources Act and the EPA guidelines. And I'm concerned about this in relation to the health and safety of and the character of Malvern Township. So we've gone for 2 hours. Does councillors want to? Oh, okay. Yes, you can have a division. Yes, definitely. All those in favour of the motion is Councillor Gardner, Councillor Maltby, and Councillor Neer. All those against is Councillor Cordy, Councillor Henderson, and Councillor Driscoll. And as chair, I have my casting vote, which is against it. Thank you. We've gone for 2 hours. So do councillors want to have a 10-minute break?
I want chocolate.
Yep. Have a 10-minute break. No?
No, no.
Okay, then we'll do it.
I want chocolate.
Yep. Okay, we'll keep going then. That's fine. And councillors don't have another motion put
Yeah.
forward?
Mayor, I'd like to move that we defer this matter to a future council meeting so that our officers might be able to prepare grounds for refusal of this application.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Cordy. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. All those against? I can do that again if you like. Okay, so we have a motion here from Councillor Henderson that's defer this motion. Yeah, but no,
I move a motion that this matter be brought to a future meeting of council to allow officers time to prepare grounds for refusal, since it has not been passed by this council. It's been rejected by the council, so therefore we need grounds for refusal. We can't leave the matter undetermined.
So second that, Councillor Corley. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. And all those against? That motion of Councillor Henderson has been carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9.3.3, which is budget carry forwards 2023 to 2024 to 2024 to 2025. Councillor Cordy, would you like to introduce this motion, please? Now,
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the recommended items to be carried forward from the 2023-24 budget to the 2024-2025 budget, and I'll make the recommendation as printed. Thank you. Motion as printed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Do I have a second? Councillor Maltby, thank you. Is anyone against this? No, okay, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to move, speak to your motion, please?
Yes, look, it's normal for some projects to be delayed or flow over to the following financial year, and this happens to us every year. We don't get everything finished in accordance with our approved budget, so yeah, I'm happy to recommend that we approve the carry forwards, which have been reviewed by the executive team. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right?
Reserve my right.
Okay, thank you. Other councillors? Okay, councillor Maltby, you can speak, please.
Oh, Councillor Cordy is correct. There's always contracts, etc., that aren't completed in time, and the process is to move them forward to the next budget.
Thank you. Councillor Cordy, you have a right to reply.
Yes, I think we've covered it, Mayor. It is normal to have these budget carry forwards. They're perhaps a little larger than we would like, but there's all sorts of circumstances. And I noted one of the things there was there was over $1 million of unbudgeted grant income, so that's actually a good news story. So you know, you get given money from other levels of government, and yeah, the work hasn't been done to progress or finalise those works, so that's a good news story. But yeah, it's just a necessary part of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. The next item is item 9.3.4, which is the economic development strategy. Councillor Henderson, would you like to introduce this, please?
I think I'll handball this to Councillor Anea. Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
gonna
Councillor
take.
Anea, would you like to
this one.
introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is for the economic development strategy. Castlemaine Institute was engaged to work with council staff to develop a new economic development strategy that aligns with council's community vision 2021 to 2031 and approaches economic development from a wellbeing economy perspective. The EDS has been created in a way that will enable it to respond to the current and future needs of the Mount Alexander Shire. The economic development strategy has been shaped by extensive community engagement and is presented for council's approval. And I will move the recommended motion that council adopts the economic development strategy 2024.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Henderson, thank you. Is there any opposition to this? Okay. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak to that motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So the economic development strategy has been under development for a little while, and I would say, you know, it's probably not my wheelhouse in general. Economy stuff, money, any of that stuff I'm not good at, but I do like the idea of a wellbeing economy. And as soon as that entered into the discussions and became, you know, a pretty fundamental part of the economic development strategy that we were creating, and that was being created by council and by Castlemaine Institute and community, I did get a lot more interested, I will say, because I get that. I understand a wellbeing economy, and I understand how a wellbeing economy underpins a really successful economic development strategy. I think, you know, initially, I'm not sure where we're all at with it. Initially, I don't know how sure we were that this was going to be a good fit, but I think the work that has been done over the last year and more, it's gotten it to a really great place that I think most people could find something in that spoke to them a little bit, whether or not they were, you know, a business person or a farmer or someone who's not very good with economy and finance and business like me. I think it's one of those strategies that needs to be broad enough and not set too much in stone, because it does need to be really flexible as things change, both locally and, you know, and further afield. So I think we've hit a really good point of, like, it's got lots of good goals, objectives. It's got a great vision. I like the vision. Our vision here is a thriving economy that serves the well-being of people, place, and the environment. And I think the goals themselves are also really good, nice and broad, you know, specific enough, but broad enough that we can really be flexible with how, with how we go about the delivery of this. So the first goal is prosperous local enterprises and organisations, then future-ready people and industry. Goal 3 is connective, inclusive and vibrant precincts. Goal 4 is sustainable approaches and systems. Goal 5 is people participating equitably in the economy. And goal 6 is healthy country. And I think, you know, reading all the feedback to this and feedback on different aspects of it, you know, there is still, you know, some people are really not into this. There are some comments there that are basically like, why are you wasting our money on this? And there's always going to be those comments because this is a new way or a different way of doing an economic development strategy, and one that I think will be uncomfortable for some people, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It was even a bit uncomfortable for me at first, and I'm pretty into that stuff, but even I, you know, with my woo-woo approach to things, was kind of like, how is this actually going to work in our community? But reading back a lot of the feedback and realizing this is what so many people in our community, especially I think kind of businesses on the smaller side, really want, and that focusing on well-being of community as a thing that underpins everything else is such a strength. And by doing that, I mean, what the economic development strategy really says is that, yes, we need a wellbeing economy approach for the economic development strategy, but we actually need that approach for everything. We need to be taking that wellbeing economy approach to everything that we do so that our community's wellbeing remains at the core of things. And obviously, that's kind of how I feel about things. So that resonates with me a lot. Alongside, well, underneath, nested in perhaps, the economic development strategy is the action plan 2024 to 2025. And for anyone who reads the economic development strategy and is just like, it's not concrete enough, where are the deliverables? Where are the actions? The action plan is where all the actions are. And it goes through, you know, what the economy and culture team, who are the main council business unit who will be, you know, delivering this strategy. Although, as it says multiple times, it's a whole of council approach is needed, and everyone's got to be talking to each other and everyone's got to be on board. But the action plan really sets out what over the next year the economy and culture team are going to do. It really breaks it down into, I think, 8 actions, and, you know, they're actions that look achievable. I don't look at these actions and go, oh God, we're never going to be able to do that. I think they are achievable actions. They are measurable actions. They are all of the things in the SMART acronym. And they're also things that I think will actually genuinely help businesses, farmers, sustainability, creative industries, all of this kind of stuff. Even one of my favorites, Action 5, is around planning and preparing for disruptive events, like another pandemic or a flood or a big fire. And I think that kind of stuff can knock businesses around so much and make it almost impossible for them to recover. We saw that, you know, in the wake of COVID, how many businesses crumbled, how many businesses could not find staff. So I think there's a lot of gold in this. I know there'll be some criticism from people because this is a very new way to look at economic development. But the more that I dig into it, the more it resonates with me and it feels like it'll be a good fit for the community. So I really commend this to my fellow councillors, and also hope that the community, you know, get involved, because it is definitely a strategy where council can't actually do all the work. Council is here to help existing businesses, new businesses, industries, figure out what they need to, you know, be sustainable, to grow, to move into our shire, to stay in our shire. And I think it's going to have to be a really collaborative thing. But the actions are there, and I have complete faith in our teams to get this working. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak the motion or reserve your right?
I'll say a little bit. I think, yeah, I did start off, like, you know, quite a few of us, feeling reasonably skeptical about this. But it's grown on me. I think there's been quite a bit of corralling and massaging and maybe, yeah, straight talking. And look, council can't do that much in the area of economic development. We just stand and support businesses where we can, and so and the community in general, obviously. And I think this document, as Councillor Anir says, is a nice, gentle way in which we do. And the action plan really starts giving me some faith, as in farmer engagement, action 2. Objectives year 1, proactively engage with at least 3 existing local farmer groups and networks. There you go, that's a nice thing. We can do that, isn't it? Business Wellbeing Club. Hub, action 3. Web pages created to collect and curate resources to help business and community organisations improve well-being and sustainability. These are very concrete actions, aren't they? Oh, and the retailer forum, trying to get together that decent, what do we call them? Chamber of Commerce and stuff thing of the 20th century. Council's never been able to actively engage with retailers en masse, but here we've got objectives year 1. The action is to establish a new forum for businesses that operate from retail premises, particularly. Year 1, visit 40 businesses to introduce the forum and have 20 plus businesses sign up. So, you know, that's a good aim, isn't it? It's a good objective. It's very concrete, and obviously it'll sink or swim, and it will be measurable, and we'll know at the end of it, at the end of year 1, that it's been successful. But at least it's having a go, putting your money where your mouth is. So yeah, it's good. It's got nice, down to earth, concrete action plan backing a nice, gentle strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Other councillors? No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Anir, you have the right of reply.
I'm okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Okay, councillor, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion carried. Thank you. And I'd just like to acknowledge the economic development team for their hard work on this. It's a lot of hours and we had a lot of meetings. So I just want to thank them. If you could pass it on for me, please, CEO. Next item on the agenda is 9.3.5, which is the appointment of members to the advisory committee of the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust. Could someone introduce that, Ned? Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
Yep. The purpose of this report is to seek appointment of community members to Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust Advisory Committee following a public expression of interest process. Subsequent steps in progressing the MAT will be presented for consideration in future meetings of council, including the results of a fundraising campaign when it is deemed to have reached the level of monetary and or land contribution sufficient to enable an initial project to proceed, a recommended model for trusteeship and the consequent structure for a tender brief to select a trustee, the appointment of a trustee that will in turn establish the MAT, and the potential periodic allocation of council land or capital to the MAT. And I would recommend as printed.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Good, Councillor Moppy. Is there anyone opposing this? Okay, thank you. Councillor Gardner, can you please speak to the motion?
Yeah, so before us, the motion is it's an advisory committee. So just this isn't selection of the trustees. Part of their role will be to look at selecting the trustees going forward. Council officers have gone through a process, and we've had a number of people who have obviously put their hand up, and you will notice that Councillor Gary McGlure is there, but he is not seeking to stand. So that's why he's, and I think he'll be a good person on this committee. I would just recommend to my council we support it, and I think the people who put their hands up are people who obviously are committed to this project, and they'll be good providing council advice, taking this matter forward.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
The only thing I would add was that because council currently or shortly will be in caretaker period, there won't be a council rep on that committee until some time later on, because the terms of reference actually allow for one councillor to be sitting on it.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Other councillors? Councillor Cordy.
Just to acknowledge the work of Margot and Jill Carina in their assistance with the selection of the suitable people. They're very well-credentialed people, and great of them to help us. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Okay. Councillor Gardner, you have the right of reply.
Oh, no, it's all good.
Okay, councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion's carried. Thank you. And I'd just like to reiterate what councillor Cordy said. Both Marg Allen and Jill Carina helped, as did Claire Richards, which was fantastic. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9.3.6, Camp Reserve Archaeology contract variation request. Councillor Henderson, would you like to introduce this or not?
Yeah, my favourite topic, archaeology. Not. Yes, this is all part of the Camp Reserve Development Council's grand plan for the Camp Reserve. We have been doing some archaeology to find out what lies in the southern corner of the reserve as required by Heritage Victoria, I think. And they found a few post holes and we've got to dig a bit more. Or no, we've already done the digging, that's right, but we have to now pay for it. I think that's it. We have actually done all the digging that's necessary, but we need a consent to damage. So this is, I move that yes, the motion is to approve the cumulative variation total of $68,480 exclusive of GST to contract M1779 2024Q Archaeological Investigation Camp Reserve in Castlemaine, bringing the revised value of the contract to $94,515 excluding GST, and delegates to the CEO the authority to approve future contract variation of this same contract up to $5,000 for any unforeseen items to conclude the contract. That's my motion.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a second to that motion? Councillor Neer, thank you. Is there any opposition to that? Councillor Cordy, okay, thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to that, please?
So there has been, let's see, so first of all, April 2024, council engaged GML and they estimated it would take 4 years of manual excavation to do the on-site archaeological investigation that was required. Beg your pardon? 4 years. Oh, it might be 4 years, yeah, you never know. No, 4 days, I beg your pardon. It's almost 9 o'clock. After receiving a consent to uncover, it sounds very rude, permit from Heritage Victoria, GML changed the methodology to a 3-day program with mechanical excavation, which was scheduled on the 28th of June. At the end of this, a representative from Heritage Victoria attended an on-site meeting. 4 post holes were discovered. And as it was not immediately evident what these archaeological remains were associated with, Heritage Victoria requested additional investigation. It is a requirement of the consent to uncover permit that investigation must continue until Heritage Victoria are satisfied. So they had to keep digging, and the investigation uncovered 42 post holes in a 25 metre by 5 metre area. The features are aligned in 2 distinct rows, running in an east-west direction, spaced at approximately 2 metres apart. I believe Councillor Motby has a theory on what these might be. Upon viewing images of the post holes, Heritage Victoria requested additional excavation as it was still not clear what structures the post holes related to. This 3rd period of excavation took place from the 17th to the 19th of July. At the time of writing, it is unknown what these features may be related to. However, there is reason to suspect that they are associated with the agricultural show. Might be something to do with horses being tied up, and not the barracks of presumably Captain Bull. Further research is underway to confirm the nature and purpose of these features. This desktop-based research work is currently underway, with a report to be provided to council officers in mid-August. Oh, that's fast and gone. Time of writing, Heritage Victoria are yet to sign off on the investigation. Therefore, the investigation site remains exposed and fenced off to the public. Heritage Victoria have confirmed verbally they will sign off the works and consider a consent to damage permit application, as there is enough archaeological information to issue this permit. Once GML complete their finding report, they will proceed to an application for consent to damage, which will cost us $9,046. This permit is a requirement to proceed to construction stage and will support the planning permit application. Right. It was not known at the time of developing the contract with GML that this would proceed to this stage. It's been incorporated as a further variation. Given that there have been a number of unforeseen elements to the archaeological work, council officers believe it would be prudent to approve a contingency of $5,000 for any additional requirements be needed to enable the planning permit application. This would make the total variation $68,480. So this report seeks approval from council to vary the contract to bring the total amount of the contract up to $94,515, which represents a 263% increase on the value of the contracted amount. And that's why it's coming to council, because it's more than 30% variation. There we go. And all this is part and parcel of working towards a planning permit application for the development of the camp reserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right.
No worries. Thank you. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I understand why this is before us, but 263% increase in the contract sum doesn't sit well with me. And it looks like we lost control there some way through, but it's a bit late to bring it here when the horse is bolted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Mople, you want to say something? No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Anir.
Yeah, look, Councillor Cordy, I understand your frustration. It's a lot more than we thought it would be, but I do get the sense that you can't really say no to Heritage Victoria if you want to develop on land that they have interest in, and because this site is listed on the heritage inventory, we need to apply for a permit in order to do any works on the site that involve digging. And if they then tell us that we need to do more archaeological investigation, we have to. I think, really because the site is listed on the Victorian Heritage Inventory, there is a risk that if we didn't do all the archaeological investigation works, if they were not completed to the satisfaction of Heritage Victoria, that council would potentially be in violation of the Heritage Act, which is a bad thing. We don't want to be in violation of the Heritage Act. We have no appetite as a council for deliberate violation of laws or regulatory requirements. That's pretty good. So we have had to do these works. And yep, they did cost more than we would have liked them to, but hopefully at the end of the day, it will still mean that we know as much as we can about the site in terms of its, archaeological significance, and that we can, progress with what we're trying to do for the camp reserve. So yes, while it's not ideal, I think we can't really say no at this point. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Neer. Councillor Henderson, you have the right of reply.
Thank you. Well, that's what you get from putting something on the heritage inventory. More expense. So, but no, sorry. It's just a real pity we didn't find anything interesting, isn't it? Like really interesting. Wouldn't it have been great if we found Captain Bull's, I don't know, what could we, personal diaries or something? No, they wouldn't have survived. But, or maybe a few spears that he'd sort of, confiscated from the local Aboriginal people. Would have been much more exciting than a few post holes left over from when horses were tied up there. But never mind. It probably would have cost us a whole lot more if there had been something really interesting found. So I guess we have to be grateful it's still under 100,000. So thank you, fellow councillors. I think we're passing this. Good.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. All those against? Motion has carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, next item is item 9.3.7, which is the award of contract 2709 0340 spray psyllium bituminous. Whoa. Bituminous Services Panel of Suppliers. Do I have someone introduce this, please? Councillor Maltby.
Thank you. This report presents to council the outcomes of the tender to establish a panel of suppliers for future spray sealing and bituminous services.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Gardner, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
All right, so the tendering process was undertaken by Procurement Australia on behalf of the following municipalities: City of Greater Bendigo, Campaspe Shire and Mount Alexander Shire. The tender was advertised with the intention of establishing a panel of pre-approved contractors for the following services: spray sealing and associated services, asphalt patching, asphalt resurfacing, crack sealing and micro servicing. 9 confirming tenders were received, and I will move the recommendation which lists the 9 recommended.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second to that motion? Councillor Gardner, well done, have I?
You didn't
Yeah.
let me move the motion first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay, Councillor Gardner, do you want to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Maltby summed it up. I'd just like to point out, I think this is a great example of councils coming together to try and greater efficiencies and squeeze more out the market. So it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Other councillors? Councillor Maltby, write a reply. Okay, thank you. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. I think that brings us to the next item, which is item 10, delegates report. Any councillors have a report? CEO, go for you.
I have a quick one.
Oh, okay, sorry. Councillor Gardner, go for it, please.
It's probably not a delegates report. It's more a shout out. Under 17 netball and under 17 football, Malden are in the grand final this weekend. So good luck.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good luck, everybody.
I want to do one then.
I've
If
got
we're,
one.
sh- if we're, sh- if we're doing shout outs, I would like to say that 7 of the however many junior Castlemaine soccer teams in the league have made it through to the grand finals. 7 of them playing it on Saturday.
Thank you. Yeah,
And I would like to say that
I've got it.
the senior men's soccer team won the overall championships in the I think it's the Northwestern League, right? My second grandson is the captain of that team, and it included I think 7 members of our Islander community that are working at Don KR, and he said they were a significant factor in their success. They're brilliant footballers, as we call it. in,
Awesome. Thank
outside
you.
of Australia. So I was very proud of that. Yeah.
CEO.
Thanks,
CEO.
thanks, Mayor. I was going to just take our report as written tonight, if you like, Mayor, given the time. But I did just want to say, because I know I can't say it in a few weeks' time at the next council meeting, I did just want to say thank you to all of you for your leadership and your support and cooperation with the staff of the organisation, the executive, the managers, and many, many staff across the organisation over the last 4 years. It has been a real pleasure to work with you and to serve you over that time. So thank you all. Very much appreciated by all of the staff, what you've done for us as an organisation and the community over the last 4 years. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, CEO. I just want to mention a couple of things. The Castlemaine Golf Club had their 125th anniversary, had a dinner there, which was great. So that was fantastic. And I facilitated a citizenship on last week with 12 new citizens too, which was really fantastic. Lisa Chester was there, which was great. And I attended the Castlemaine Secondary College Werrett Purple Day, which was a good afternoon, and it's days like that which is really important for our community, so that everybody understands and acknowledge people and the diversity of our community, which was fantastic. And I got a little bit of a shout out. Sorry, not a little bit of a shout out, a big shout out to congratulate the Castlemaine Football Netball Club, senior women's football side, because they've achieved the elusive three-peat, which is actually claiming their 3rd consecutive premiership victory in the AFL Central Victorian Women's League. So that's pretty hard thing to do, and they've done that well for the third time, which is fantastic. Okay, item 11 is a notice of motion, which Councillor Gardner, if you'd like to move your motion, please.
Yeah, sorry for late notice. My motion is as follows, that the CEO write to the Minister of Environment to request a review of the policy statement improving equity of access to Crown Land Caravan and Camping Parks 2011, Crown Land Caravan Parks Policy Update 2019, and Best Practice Management Guidelines for Committees of Managing Caravan and Caravan Parking on Crown Land 2012 to allow the issuing of new accommodation permits for long-term occupancy of sites in caravan parks on Crown Land. And that's my motion.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor. And we have a seconder, which is Councillor Maltby. Thank you. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Certainly. So I brought this motion for a number of reasons. I think one of them, which is explained in the rationale, and I suppose brought this up particularly around Maldon, but obviously it will affect Castlemaine. We're not a seaside town, so a lot of these hard, fast rules of having people within a caravan 60 days is around for coastal areas. Obviously, occupancy rates in something like Maldon Caravan Park could be improved as extended. The other reason why I brought it up was that there was a recent incident where, and I won't go into too much detail, of a local resident who met the 60 days and had to leave. And I know that even with the best efforts of our staff, who I know went over and above to help and support them, unfortunately, they couldn't stay any longer than 60 days, which was regrettable. And I think what it does show is that the rule is stupid, is probably how I'd put it. And what it does require is that council have a bit more flexibility in managing those rules. So that's why I've brought that motion forward. And I'd also like to publicly acknowledge and apologise to Acting CEO Knight. I probably said a few things I shouldn't at that time. And also thank Michael, Acting Director, not Acting. I do know that both of you two in particularly went out of your way to try and help the situation. But yes, that's why I've put this forward tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to this, or was there?
Yeah, Councillor Gardner's motion is good because it asks the Minister for Environment to review the policies, and that's probably well overdue.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors?
Oh, we could do nothing but support this. It was a terrible situation at the time, and that in the Maldon Caravan Park, and that revealed to us just what the situation is. And obviously, the policy's been brought in to protect particular classes of caravan park where there's big pressures on due to the being at the coast. Maldon's certainly not in that category, and it is much better suited to providing low-cost accommodation for people who need it, as well as the occasional holiday. It's certainly not going to be overcrowded at any stage. And I think, yes, the rule for busy caravan parks and coastal and high visitation tourist areas should not be imposed on every caravan park in the state. And I'm hoping that it doesn't fall on deaf ears and we have some action. I'm not quite sure what we can do to follow up, but anyway, a letter to the Minister is a good start. So commend Councillor Gardner's motion. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Neer?
I think, yeah, I want to thank Councillor Gardner for bringing this motion through, because I think we all at the time of the particular incident we had felt pretty helpless and angry and confused about, when we all live in relatively small communities. Our total population here is not that much. We are close-knit communities who know what's going on with each other and who look out for each other. And there is something really, really horrible about not being able to help somebody in your community who needs help, even when you're a counsellor, even when you're a council. There is something really awful about that level of helplessness. So I think anything that we can do to let the powers that be know the effects that these rules are having on us, inland shires and our caravan parks, and coupled with obviously the housing crisis, some flexibility and discretion given to councils to do what they know is best for their community and to make decisions sometimes that could really help community members out. Thanks for bringing it through, Stephen. I really hope somebody listens, because it was an awful situation and I really wanted there to be more that we could do, and there just wasn't. And that's a really bitter pill to swallow sometimes.
Thank you, councillor. Other councillors? That's it. Councillor Gardner, you have the right of reply.
No, everything's been said. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor. We have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion's carried. Thank you. And I also want to thank you, Councillor Gardner, for that motion.
Mayor, could we have a division, please?
Yes, certainly. Okay. So, sorry? Yeah, sure. So the division has been called. So all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. So that's Councillor Gardner, Councillor Cordy, Councillor Maltby, Councillor Neer, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Driscoll. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 12, next item is urgent special business. There is none. Item 13 is confidential items. Could I have someone move the motion, please?
I can.
Councillor
So
Neer.
these reports are confidential in accordance with section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, which permits the meeting to be closed to consider confidential information. Therefore, I will move the motion as printed.
Do I have a second to that? Councillor Henderson, all those in favour of the motion? Motion carried. Thank you. And that means I close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for attending. See you later.